Welcome everyone to my presentation, Vagrant Up Your Environment. Before I start, raise your hand if you're already using Vagrant or Puppet. All right, anybody using other configuration management like Ansible, Salt, or Chef? Yeah, all right, great. So my name is Yann Larrivee. I'm a consultant. I'm from Canada. And I specialize in project rescue. I have my own company, which is Foo Lab. I also organize a conference called ConFoo, which is a polyglot conference. So PHP, Java, Ruby, .NET, Node, JavaScript, everything. So it's a great occasion to visit Canada in February when it's cold. My contact information are here. So feel free to send me feedback from my presentation. All right. So my presentation objectives are very simple. I want to increase the software quality with this presentation. I want to lower the time needed for quality assurance, reduce the time needed for configuring servers. Because we're paid to actually solve real problems, not configure machines. So what you will learn in this presentation is how to manage machines with Vagrant, how to provision them with VirtualBox or DigitalOcean, how to install packages with Puppet, use how to configure templates, and how to create reusable scripts and manifest. So what is VirtualBox? VirtualBox is a hosted hypervisor. What it means that you need an operating system to have it running. Other systems don't require an operating system because it's included in the software. Such tools like all the vCloud tools from VMware, for example. And Puppet is a configuration management system. It has all your manifests, all your scripts, and those are actually going to be executed by Vagrant, the provisioner. The provisioner is going to use the VirtualBox API just to apply the Puppet scripts on your virtual machine that you created. So first scenario to use Vagrant and Puppet. You have a team of developers that run Windows, Linux, or Mac, and because they have the control of their environment, they're going to install different versions of software. In this case, I put PHP because I'm a PHP developer. I'm sorry. But they can install different versions, and they can start using these features that they're going to use may not be backward compatible or compatible with your configuration that you have in production. So this is actually terrible. You need to standardize your environment. If you don't, your code may break in production. Or another scenario is you have a new employee. It happens to me often when I go to customers that they have new employees coming in, and the boss tells the sysadmin or whoever is working in setting up the machines, on Friday it's noon, and oh, can you set up the machines for this new guy? He's coming in Monday. So you only have a couple hours just to do it, and it takes time to do that. So you want to automate that process so it only takes a couple minutes, maybe 1 hour just to set up the whole machine. The other scenario is you want to standardize your environment. Your production, your development environment, your staging environment, and your production environment. And when you have peaks, you want to be able, peaks of traffic, you want to be able to spin virtual machines very quickly. So here are a couple links. I'm not going to show you how to install them, but you can go to these URLs and download the tools and install them. But once we have downloaded the tools, we need a base virtual machine. There are a couple places where you can get them. There's Atlas.HashiCorp. HashiCorp is actually the company that created Vagrant. Most of the boxes that you'll find there are pretty good, at least those that are built by HashiCorp. You also have vagrantbox.es. Basically anyone can upload virtual machines on these two. You just have to create an account and upload your files. Very simple. So the quality may be, let me rephrase this. So basically, you can have, on those virtual machines, you can have anything that is running. You can have scripts that you're not aware of that are included in those virtual machines. So you have to be very careful about what you download. For example, your virtual machine, you're putting your code in it. It has intellectual property. You have your API keys. You have your passwords. If there's a script that actually just takes your data and sends it somewhere, you just have a security breach that you've introduced. Me personally, I'd rather go use the boxes straight from the provider, so straight from Ubuntu or from Red Hat, just for security reasons. Yes, it will require more effort from me, but that's okay. I'm willing to put the extra effort. So here are a couple commands for Vagrant. So just to get started, we run Vagrant init, the name of the box and the URL. This will create a Vagrant file that we'll show you a bit later. And then right after, we just run Vagrant up. This will download the box and will boot up the virtual machine. Then you can run Vagrant alt, suspend, resume, reload. I'm sure you're familiar with those. But what is really nice is Vagrant SSH. You can actually SSH in your virtual machine without even knowing the username or the IP address or anything like that. It won't require a password. So you just Vagrant SSH and you're in. And then you have Vagrant provision. Vagrant provision basically runs all the manifest, check that your virtual machine is in the state that Puppet that you've defined in your Puppet manifest. And then you got Vagrant destroy. That pretty much destroys your virtual machine. So if you've made any changes in your configuration, well, it's gone. I'm sorry. And you have Vagrant Package. Vagrant Package is actually pretty useful to share your virtual machine. So once you've created your virtual machine and it's in a good state that you desire, it's perfect, and you want to share it with your coworkers, you're going to run Vagrant Package and distribute that file. So now let's create the box. And we all know as developers, naming things is very hard. In the past, we've named things. You've seen things like foo, bar, baz, and such. But foo and bar and baz have been gaining too much exposure over time. So now it's the era of Waldo. I don't know if Waldo is popular here in Poland, but in Canada, when I was a kid, it was very popular. So anyways, so we do Vagrant init with the name of the box and the URL. Here it's a bit.ly, but it really points out to the Ubuntu cloud image. This will generate the Vagrant file. That looks just about like this once you strip out all the useless comments. It's very simple, but all the comments actually have some value once you, if you want to learn how to configure things. But just for the purpose of this presentation, I removed them. So what we'll be able to do with this file later is name your virtual machine, manage your RAM, the CPU, shared folders, network cards, and the configuration manager, the hypervisor, so VirtualBox, VMware, or DigitalOcean. It all depends where you want to publish your virtual machine. So let's configure that virtual machine. Here we have our shared folder, so we can put our code in that folder. So you can work on your Windows or Mac or wherever. And here we actually set up the name of the virtual machine. So the waldo.box. And this is actually very important to put. Because if you don't set it, VirtualBox will actually assign a name. And it's going to be a random name. And random names are hard to remember. So once you have multiple virtual machines, you don't want to go through the pain of remembering what is associated to what. And we set up a bit of memory, 1 gig of RAM and 1 CPU. And here we set up the Puppet manifest. So somewhat simple. Let's cover a bit. Let's go over a bit over Puppet. Puppet is made out of a manifest, so we have a main manifest file that we'll see a bit later. And then you're able to create modules, classes. Class is a great way to organize your resources. And define. Defines are pretty much just like functions that you can call in all the different modules. So the type of resources you have like packages. That would be a package basically is if you're running Ubuntu, you would do apt-get install, say Apache. And then you can manage files. So you can do symlinks, create files, delete files, create files from templates. I'll show that a little bit later. Services, so starting services, stopping them, making sure they're running. Cron jobs, executing commands or scripts. I know some people say that executing scripts is bad, it's evil, because it gets out of the scope of Puppet. It's out of control, if you want. It's out of the control of Puppet. But if you have a bash script that is doing something and is doing it well, and you don't have the time or the energy to convert it to Puppet, it's actually great. It gets the job done. When you have more time, you just convert it to a Puppet script instead. And you have stages. Stages are actually useful. You can say which resources are in the pre-boot stage, which resources, if you want to do a deployment into production, which resources are going to get executed in that stage. But that's more advanced stuff, so maybe you want to look that later. So now let's create a simple manifest, very, very simple. In this case, we have a resource, a package resource, and here I named the resource Apache.Package. Every resource, I try to prefix it with where it belongs, or what it's affecting. In this case, it's affecting Apache, so I'm just going to prefix it Apache and then what it is, the name of the resource, what type of resource it is. So in this case, Apache.Package. This way I can refer to it very easily. It's something I can remember. The package I install is Apache 2. I make sure it's installed, and I notify the Apache service, which is defined here. So basically, this is the equivalent of apt-get install Apache 2. And this here makes sure that the service is running, and it's enabled. So that means that when the virtual machine is actually booting, Apache is running, and you want that. And then I installed another package, which is PHP 5, and it requires another package. It requires Apache. So if for some reason Apache is not installed, it's going to install it automatically, and it's going to notify the service, so it's going to start Apache or reload it. So creating your first module is not tricky, but there's a few things that you need to do right. And that is naming things. Your module, this is going to be, in this case, it's going to be a PHP module. But you have in your folder, you need to have a manifest folder. And if you're using templates or files, you're going to need to have templates written like that. It's not something that is configured, that is configurable. It's just something that Puppet expects you to do exactly like this. So in order to enable our module, we need to specify the path of our module. So Puppet modules, this is where all our modules are going to be stored. But also included another option here, Puppet option. This is the same thing as if I would run Puppet apply -- whatever options. Now, parser future and debug. Why did I include that? Parser future is, well, this is a setup actually for Puppet 3. I use Puppet 3 because I had some issues with Puppet 4, so I'm waiting till those issues are resolved. But I want to use some features of the, I want to use the parser, the future parser, so version 4. I'll explain why later. And the debug option. The debug option is actually pretty interesting. It's going to show you every command that Puppet is going to run with all the options and all the output. So if you have some issues or you want to learn more about your system, say you're not familiar on how Red Hat is working and you want to be more familiar with it, it's a good way to learn. So initially we had this manifest, and if you keep going this way, your first manifest is going to get very messy very quickly. So you want to simplify that. You want to start writing modules, and here, what we're doing, we're simply including modules. So in this case, we're including the PHP module and the Apache module, which I didn't explain how. But I also include stdlib. stdlib is actually pretty good. It's a module developed by the Puppet community. It enables you to validate data and work with hashes and things like that. It has a lot of functionalities. But it's, you'll probably need it at some point. So let's create that first module here. In this case, I just regroup things in a class. It's pretty much similar to the previous things, except it's just wrapped into a class. But can anybody tell me what's wrong with this approach? What's wrong here? Dependencies. No, actually, no, this is not what I, but maybe you have a more clear explanation?
Well, if there would be any interference between when one module needs, when PHP URL needs a PHP.
The order of the installation actually is, Puppet will figure that out. But the main problem is we have things that are hard-coded and are very specific to an operating system. For example, on Ubuntu, this will work. But if you try to port that Puppet script on Red Hat, it's not going to work anymore because the package for Red Hat is not PHP 5. It's PHP. And it's not very flexible. If you want, so everything is hard-coded. It's specific to an operating system, and it's not customizable. You can't customize packages, and it's only good for one server. So for example, if your setup requires multiple virtual machines to work together, and one is running Ubuntu and the other one is running Red Hat, well, you're going to have to rewrite that script for the that Puppet manifest for the Red Hat the Red Hat virtual machine, and and then you start managing branches of code, and it gets dirty. You don't want that. So what you want to write generic modules. You want to write them once and always configure them. So always use configuration files that you can use in your manifest. What I've shown before, it's examples that you're going to find on the internet. And it's very tempting to do those mistakes. Very few places actually explain how to do it properly. And so the key is actually using Yara. It's a key store engine that supports JSON, YAML, and MySQL, and many other backends. So let's just configure this. So here we have the same file, except I added the path to the Yara configuration. Very simple. It's a YAML file that looks pretty much like this. Very, very simple. I specified a JSON backend because I find JSON is much more readable than YAML, but that's my personal preference. But what's interesting is this here. It's the hierarchy of your configuration files, the way when it does a key lookup, in the order in which it's going to look in the configuration. So in my case, when I do vagrant up waldo.box, it's actually going to look into the node folder waldo.box.json. And if it finds a key in that file, if it doesn't find a key in that file, it's going to go to the common configuration. So you can reuse parts of configuration, so that's pretty cool. And then you have the where all the configurations are for each virtual machine. Well, where these where these files are located. So let's configure that box with Yara. What we have here, it's a key which is PHP package. In order to fully benefit from Yara, without calling the function everywhere, like Yara and then your key that you want to use this approach. So the name of the module and then the name of the variable you want. This will do automatic data binding for you. So your code is going to be much more clear later on. And here also have like arrays of configuration and arrays of extensions. This is where the future parser comes in, because hashes are not supported in Puppet 3. But it's very useful to automate things later. So now let's write that generic module. So the approach is that you have different variables that you pass to your module, and here, this is where our package name was. So in this case, this will translate into a key search in Yara for PHP package. So, and that's going to end up being PHP 5. And here we look if it's a hash, and we just loop through all our extensions. So instead of having multiple resources named package, and this helps a lot making your classes much shorter, much simpler. You can also, like I said earlier, we can also create configuration files, create files. In this case, what I do is I just actually read a template, which a template is a ERB file, and in there I will show you how it works. It's actually pretty simple. So whenever that file is either created or changes, it restarts Apache or reloads Apache. So you can do a lot of automatic things. In the templates, it's as simple as calling, just using a variable or an array, a variable or an array of configurations. Think that why I use arrays sometimes, it's because if you have 1,000 keys in your files, you're going to do 1,000 key lookup. So that can be costly. So if you're sure that things are not going to change, you can just store them in arrays, and you won't have that performance hit. Creating, so you have a setup, you have a production setup, and sometimes you want to have multiple virtual machines. And you want to stay as close as possible to your setup. So we're going to create some multi-node environment with Vagrant. A Vagrant file is basically a Ruby file. It's Ruby. So we can just do something as simple as creating a file, a JSON file or a YAML file, and just loop through our virtual machines. It's that simple. Okay, but why create a file when we have 2, 3 virtual machines? But what happens if you have 10? You could copy paste your code, modify it, but copy pasting, I don't know, it's bad practice. So this actually works pretty well. So the next step is going into the cloud. There are several benefits sometimes to go to the cloud. Maybe you don't have enough resources on your local machine. Maybe you just have this virtual machine, it works well, and you want to push it on Amazon or DigitalOcean. So it's very simple to do as well. Vagrant and Puppet is actually pretty simple, I find. But we installed the DigitalOcean, Vagrant DigitalOcean plugin. Just like that. It's actually written by the DigitalOcean guys, so it works well. And what you're interested in is actually this part. Here you specify your token for your virtual machine, your token for your DigitalOcean API, the image you want to use, the region, so the data center, the image, and the name of your SSH key. The values for image, region, and size, it's all stuff that can be found or listed on the via the DigitalOcean API. So you want to look this up, and then we just do Vagrant up with the provider DigitalOcean and the name of the box. It's that simple. Now you're in the cloud, and hopefully it works. So I've covered a couple things. Somewhat simple, but what I really want you to learn from this is start by automating small things, things that you master, that you understand. Start small. If you start automating things when you're learning, you will break stuff. And breaking stuff on production is actually pretty bad. It costs a lot of money. You probably heard some stories of some DevOps that push things in production, and the company actually went bankrupt within 24 hours. Because we automate things to go faster, but you can go faster in 2 directions, in the good direction or the bad direction. And when you break things, you go in the wrong direction. So start small, iterate over your code. Take small steps. Automate, write your Puppet script once, configure always. Have a lab of computers. Take the time to test them on multiple machines. If you don't have multiple machines, this is where the cloud is. Having having virtual machines on DigitalOcean it's pretty cheap. It costs a couple dollars per day, so it's a good way to just to test your stuff. And be careful. Be careful. Don't trust every single Puppet scripts that you're going to find. Yes, they can save you time, but they can also be very harmful if you're not careful. And it can actually be more time-consuming just to review all the code, understand everything that is happening in all these huge manifests, than just to write a couple manifests that answers your need, that don't try to solve the entire problem of the internet. So this is pretty much my presentation. I see I still have 30 minutes. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead. My slides are, my slides are at this URL. So Questions? Yeah.
I have a question about setting up the development environment. So it seems from your presentation that Puppet supports the packages from the app-get, from Ubuntu or some Red Hat packages, but can we somehow create our own packages and use this to set up the development environment on Windows?
Well, you could create your own RPMs or your own Debian packages and install them. You just have to specify what is the provider for that. I haven't shown how to do this, but you can look up on the package resource definition, and you're going to be able to do it. For example, it could be also you could also download the package with wget or something like that as well.
But do I have to supply the package in the RPM format or the DEP format?
Well, it depends on what your environment is. But yes, you can.
This is a Windows environment, not Linux.
Oh, it's a Windows environment?
Yes.
I haven't tried on Windows, but you can specify EXEs that you have to install. But I haven't tried that. Any other questions? You guys are pretty quiet.
Can you also compare the Vagrant and Puppet to the Ansible?
Ansible, I haven't used it. I looked at it. From what I see, it's pretty much resources that you create. There are other tools that, like Tower, that can be interesting. In this case, I just showed the Puppet masterless setup, so it's more usable for a development environment. But yeah, I think Ansible is well. The benefit of Ansible it's actually correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's in Python, so you can use Python syntax to do things versus Puppet, which is a DSL. So it's a bit different syntax than Ruby. So that would be one of the key things.
Do you know what is the relation between this and Docker, for example?
Docker, I haven't used Docker, but I know like Docker, you just basically you just ship your libraries, so you don't have the full operating system, so it's a bit more lightweight. But I guess it's a matter of preferences. The key is at least that you use a system to distribute your virtual machines or that to standardize your environment. That's the key. As long as you use something, VirtualBox or Vagrant or whatever, you know. Anything else? All right. Well, I'm here, so if you have any more questions, I can answer them, or yeah. All right. Thank you.